Hey, Matt.
Hey, Ryan.
I'm so glad you came. I'm so glad you remembered.
I did. I'm here. I remembered.
I'm very proud of you, man.
Thanks.
And are you ready to talk some Cure with me?
Well, I guess all I have to say is I think you should listen to this.
And welcome back, everybody! This is a music podcast called Hey, Listen to This. If you weren't able to pick that up by either A, clicking onto the episode, or B, what Matthew just said.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, you're basically opening up a box of Cheerios and being surprised there's Cheerios inside your box of Cheerios. That's clearly labeled a box of Cheerios.
I feel like there might be a story there that you had.
There really isn't. That literally is just improv off the top of my head.
Oh, okay. So, the premise of this podcast, for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, which is a high likely possibility considering our content, is me and Matt take turns dissecting, well, not dissecting, but picking an album that both of us are going to essentially dissect track by track. And for the month of January, we have been doing the Matthew Durzik Challenge.
Yes. And Ryan Kearns, who is the other guy, because I don't think we actually mentioned our names yet. What we've done is, for the first few episodes of this podcast, probably about the first dozen or so, when we picked our albums, I tended to skew towards older albums, like Neil Young's Everybody Knows This Is Nowhere, Led Zeppelin 4, Joni Mitchell's Blue. Ryan would tend to pick newer albums like the first Black Country New Road album, Punisher by Phoebe Bridgers, Turn Out the Lights by Julian Baker. So I thought, you know what, from New Year challenge, I guess. I'm not do something because we're not going to be the new people, but this might be a step in that direction. So I decided to pick newer albums. Ryan decided to pick older albums, with the caveat being I had to pick from the year 2000 on. He had to pick from the year 1999 back. So this is the final week of January, and this is Ryan's turn, and I believe we're going back to 1989 on this one.
I do believe so. Yeah, I mean, heck, why not do some fact checking here just to keep ourselves?
I love how you're looking at your phone when you have the album literally like right next to you, which might have that information on there.
It's easier just to pull up Spotify, I guess.
Well, actually, this wouldn't work because let's see. Hold on.
I do have the answer though.
What is it?
It's 1989.
Okay.
So, like Taylor Swift, we were going back to 1989.
Yes.
And
hi, my name is Robert Smith. Okay.
So, the reason why, well, the album that we're talking about, because I don't think we actually announced it verbally in this episode yet.
No, we have not.
It's the 1989 magnum opus by The Cure called Disintegration.
Yes, Disintegration. Now, before we get into why you chose this album,
Yeah.
what is your familiarity with The Cure before you got into this album?
So, my familiarity with the Cure prior to, really getting into this album is I knew that this album was a big album.
Right.
And, I listened to, I know they're big singles, Friday I'm in Love, Lovesong that's off this album that we will talk about, and Just Like Heaven. And then, on top of that, when I was a patron of the Needle Drop, I listened to their classic album live. Well, he does a classic album live stream every month.
Yeah.
And their 1982 album Pornography was one album that was chosen, and I was able to dig it, but prior to diving into this album, I never actually listened to a whole album by The Cure.
Gotcha. I can't quite say my experience is the same as that, but it's close.
Yeah.
So I had kind of known about Friday I'm in Love. I probably heard Just Like Heaven a couple times. I thought, well, that's a nice song. Mm-hmm. Wasn't as familiar with Lovesong off this album, but my real only exposure to The Cure before this was one night at this fabled house called Fam House. Me and myself, well, not me and myself, But myself, my friend Ian, and our friend Jeremy were there, and we were playing Monopoly. And in the background, Ian was playing the album 16 Seconds by The Cure, which I believe was also 1982 or maybe 1981.
Yeah.
And I remember listening to the song At Night, which up until this point, and maybe even after this, might still be my favorite Cure song. But aside from that, I really haven't had much exposure to Cure either, and haven't really dug into their music until this review that we're about to do.
And I don't think I actually explained to you why I chose this specific album.
No, but I was literally about to ask you that.
So, hey, I read your mind, man.
Yes, you did.
So, one of my master plans that with this episode, I'm concluding, an episode that I wanted to do is that there is another band that The Cure has been compared to relentlessly. Maybe not relentlessly, but they've been kind of tied to in in terms of heated and one band doesn't like the other.
Okay.
Can you guess that band?
The Smiths?
Yeah, boy.
Okay.
So I was kind of thinking okay, so if we were to pit have their top albums, at least in terms of critical acclaim going up against one another, where would we stand? As a music podcast and as music nerds as we are, what is our opinion when it comes to The Cure versus the Smiths? So
gotcha.
We've already did The Queen Is Dead, and we both considered that album to be good, leaning on great, but not blow your pants off, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So with that being said, you ready to find out if The Cure are gonna blow our pants off?
Let's do this.
Alright, so the album begins with a very plain song.
How long you been sitting on that one?
30 seconds.
Oh, okay, good.
So, yeah. So, yeah, the opening track is called Plainsong, and, it's such an interesting way to kick off the album because, first, it's kind of on the quieter side. You hear wind chimes and everything, and then you just get smacked in the face with some beautiful, big instrumentation.
You really do. The orchestration on this particular song is magnificent.
Yeah.
You have the wind chimes. It almost feels like a deleted track from the Lion King soundtrack, in a sense.
Yeah, you're not wrong, man.
Yeah, just this very atmospheric, look upon all of this land that is in front of you type of sound to it.
Yeah.
And it is executed beautifully. And another thing I noticed is that the time signature on this song is not your traditional time signature. It feels more orchestral in that regard, too.
Yeah. I think I was too sucked into the beauty and how breathtaking it was to really pick up any time signature.
That's fair. Yeah. That's fair.
And one thing that I will say, we talk about the whole band in terms of what they bring to the table. One of the many things that I'm going to talk about this album and with The Cure as a whole that I discovered thanks to this album is that this band, outside of the vocals, they're allowed to breathe. And oftentimes I think that there's we'll get into the one track, but there's one track in here where Robert Smith, the vocalist of The Cure, he has one verse and then he just gets out of the way. Yeah. And even so fun fact about me, and hopefully the person who I'm about to maybe throw shade at is not listening to this podcast, but if they are, hi.
Oh boy.
But one of my ex-girlfriends, she used to listen to the Jonas Brothers.
Oh.
And this is when I was in high school, so she she would be taken back by how long it would take for the vocals to kick in on some of the music that I listened to.
Mm-hmm.
I have a feeling if she would listen to this album, she would be nah, I'm good. I want to hear the vocals. And like the vocals don't come in for good chunks, and even when they do come in, especially with this song here, like they're not very direct, man.
They're not very direct, and we'll come back at times to that theme of not going into the vocals right away, which is a very interesting move for the entirety of the album. Well, most of the album. There's a couple songs that do sort of buck that trend. But to be completely honest, the vocals are the one thing... Well, actually, not the vocals themselves. The vocals are good. Robert Smith is a very good singer, and this song is no exception.
Yeah.
But the one part of this song that kind of sinks it for me a little bit is the production. Because I really can't... I mean, I can hear his vocals, but I can't understand what he's saying.
So... I might contradict myself when I'm saying this.
Okay.
Because when we discussed, like, hey, that, like... When we did the Liz Fair episode and, like, you know, a couple other, like, examples of, like, hey, like, this is actually the point of it.
Yeah.
But with how this song is orchestrated, where, like, you know, you get the wind chimes and you get sucked in, and with the lyrics, it kind of, like, you know, with the amount of reverb that's on them,
yeah,
I feel like it's supposed to be more of a mystical element, like, you know...
Almost like a dream sequence.
Yeah, yeah. And
okay.
I feel like that's when if it's not for you, it's fine. Like,
right.
I'm not here to convince you into the cult of the Cure, but like that's at least from my standpoint how I took the vocals in that in this song.
Which I understand that, and I figured that's kind of what they were going for.
Yeah.
Again, it's just a nitpick on my part. I mean, it's something where I'm thinking, you know, I would love to understand what he's saying, and it wouldn't be such an issue for me if it weren't for the fact that on just about every other song on the album, the vocals are clear and concise. You can hear exactly what he's saying. So I feel like on this track they could have maybe brought his vocals out a little further.
Yeah.
But that's the only negative thing I have to say about this track.
I feel like in Lullaby the vocals are kind of hard to hear, but again,
we'll get there.
I feel. So, anyways, just hitting a couple more things about Plainsong here before we go on to Pictures of You. So, one of the things that I really love about this song, and like the band as a whole throughout this whole album, the guitar solos. And it's not really much of a solo. It's more of like the instrument is used more as a guide and as an expression of like, you know, hey, this is where we're going to be going, as compared to like, hey, I'm just going to show off my skills here.
Right.
And like something I even caught on like a re-listen here is that with how the guitar in this specific track here works, where like there's moments where the guitar bends, like the synth in the background bends with it. And that's so brilliant, man. And then...
See, this is the part where I got caught up in the beauty because I didn't notice that.
Yeah. Well, that came on like maybe my third or fourth listen of that album.
That's fair.
This album here. So we're talking about the vocals here and the lyrics. So let me refer to the vinyl packaging here. Because, yes, I did purchase the vinyl like right after I heard this album for the first time. If that's going to give any spoilers of how I feel about this album.
Yeah.
So, this whole... this album is essentially about like heartbreak and just a disintegration of that. Roll credits. But, like, the first set of lyrics in this song goes, I think it's dark and it looks like rain, you said, and the wind is blowing, looks like it's the end of the world, you said. This is like more of him having a conversation with somebody who well, it's just between two parties. Like it could be a former love, it could be like, you know, just a former, like the former self that he had, well, who he's looking and talking to his past self. And, like, this is really exemplified by, like, the next set of lyrics. I mean, I think I'm old and I'm feeling pain, you said. and it's all running out like it's the end of the world, you said. And just the other set of lyrics that kind of encapsulate like the end of like the song here is like the phrase like I'm living at the edge of the world is repeated, and just those kind of themes about experiencing pain, becoming old and living at the edge of the world. Like, it almost seems like this is a proper overture to the album.
I can get behind that. And again, I'm glad you brought that up, because again, if I had just based it on what I'd listened to, I would not have been able to decipher that. But you explain that does kind of make a lot of the rest of the album make sense for me now.
Yeah.
Or at least from a thematic explanation. And again, not every album has to be thematic in order to be good.
Yeah.
And not every album has to be thematic, period. Hello, Van Halen, how are you? But this one definitely follows a certain theme now that I think about it. And it'll keep coming up in song by song where sort of goes by a different theme. We've talked about in the past with, Joni Mitchell's Blue or Yankee Hotel Foxtrot. That if a lyrical theme can carry the album, it definitely elevates it to a certain level.
Oh, yeah. So, ready to move on to Pictures of You?
Pictures of You.
All right.
And this song, second song on the album, definitely different from the first one, where the first one was very orchestral and atmospheric. This one comes back down to earth. It's got a solid groove at the top, and it goes on for probably, 2.5 minutes before Robert Smith starts singing.
Yeah. Plainsong really sucked me into the album, but it's when Pictures of You hit that I'm like, oh my goodness. And I think, I texted you, right after I listened to that song. Yeah. And I was just like, holy cow, what the heck is it? What the heck is this band? So talk about that groove that kicks in and, how, the band's really allowed to, breathe with the groove, which is, again, I love that, man. And, how the guitar is brought back and how, just explores different directions patiently. It's so good. I can't overstate, how much I love the grooves in this specific, album. And, Pictures of You is definitely a highlight. And I would probably say it's probably my favorite track off the album.
I can get behind that. I don't agree with it, but I can get behind that.
Yeah.
I really do like this song, too, because, again, like you said, the groove is fantastic. The band is locked in. And a lot of times whenever bands tend to vamp a lot, it can get a little tedious. Yeah. And there are some moments on this album, I will say, that do reach those lengths.
Yeah.
But a lot more times than not on this album, it doesn't do that.
Man.
More times than not, you just follow along the groove, and it carries without getting tedious. And then it gets the lyrics, which, if I may follow, because I understood the lyrics when I heard it, but just the opening lines of, I've been looking so long at these pictures of you that I almost believe that they're real. I've been living so long with my pictures of you that I almost believe that the pictures are all I can feel. At this point,
Holy cow, dude!
Right.
Dead.
Yeah. At this point, he's just, spilling his guts out.
Yeah.
And using just such great poetic imagery to describe this, love that he's missing, this love that he's lost, this love that he yearns for. And it goes on like this for the next 3 or 4 minutes or so. And then even after that, the band goes for about another minute on the groove and just doesn't stop. It is really a good song.
And even on top of that, you're talking about the grooves that are very part of the verses. I feel like they're different every single time, which adds to a different layer of how awesome the song is. And another set of lyrics off the song here that I really do like. Let me see here. I Actually, let me just go off my notes here because.
Oh well, that works too.
Yeah. That's gonna make a little bit more better context. So the set of lyrics that really just capped everything off for me was, "If only I thought of the right words, I could have held on to your heart. If only I thought of the right words, I wouldn't be breaking apart all my pictures of you." Like, that, just like the genuine passion that you hear in Smith's vocals, and he's not a loud vocalist at all.
No.
But, like, the way that he's able to compose such vivid and passionate, lyrics in this song, like, holy cow. So we go from Plainsong to Pictures of You.
Yeah.
Like, talk about, like, an amazing, 1-2 punch.
I was just about to say a 1-2 punch. That's exactly what I thought too. Again, I'm not as high on Plainsong as you. I think it's a good song, but I'm not wasn't blown away by it as much as you were.
Yeah.
But Pictures of You definitely elevated this experience of the album, and I would say I prefer it to Plainsong.
Yeah. And, I mean, that's totally fair. Like, realistically, if all things are equal, like, I said Pictures of You is my favorite track so far, off the album as a whole. So,
yeah.
I mean, technically I agree as well.
Right.
So, and so, ready to move on to Close Down?
Let's move on to Close Down.
Okay. And you want to kick this one off?
Sure. This song on the album, again, tends to follow the same formula as the other one as far as the structure. Sound-wise, though, it tends to mix the best of both worlds from Plainsong and from Pictures of You, because the beat is very much polyrhythmic from the drummer, talking about, what it was on about the third or fourth listen of this song that I thought to myself, oh, that kind of reminds me of Burning Down the House in a sense, the very polyrhythmic tones that Chris France was going on the album. And with this song, that definitely tends to be a flavor I noticed as well. Lyrically, the song is, there's not a whole lot of lyrics to the song. In fact, if you look at the lyrics on your vinyl sheet or online, you'll notice that there are all of 9 lines in the entire song. So, not necessarily the most productive song. And the one thing I noticed about this song that kind of surprised me is just, in a sense, how quick it is. Mm-hmm. Because it just kind of goes and goes and goes along and then just stops.
Yeah.
It just stops at about the 4-minute 20 mark. It's just like, oh, we're done here.
Yeah.
Which, considering it takes another 2 minutes for Robert Smith to start singing, doesn't leave him a whole lot of time. But he doesn't need a whole lot of time.
Yeah. The thing the way that I picture Close Down, I feel like Plainsong is the introduction. Like, Plainsong, Pictures of You, and Close Down are its own, mini trilogy.
Yeah.
In terms of, a sonic tapestry there. So, Matt alluded to the fact that, this song is I think it's the only song off the album that has just one verse, and that's it.
That's it.
And, that, I love that, man. It shows that, again, I'm only just speculating, because I'm a brand new, huge fan of The Cure. But, it just shows that Robert Smith, again, not throwing shade at, Morrissey, or, any of the lyricists that doesn't, do this, but, it just shows that the band, The Cure is more about the band than the vocals, the lyrics.
Yeah.
The lyrics and the vocals, they add, an amazing layer, but, the way that, the thing that sucked me into this song here, and this album as a whole, again, I'm just repeating myself, but, it's just the fact that the band's allowed to groove, and, with this song here specifically, so the song begins with some nice toms to kick off the track.
Right.
And I think that's, a nice little, change up compared to the last couple, songs that we just experienced. the guitar again adds a nice simple direction, but I love it. And like even on the lyrical end, the set of lyrics that I really did appreciate was and uselessly always the need to feel again the real belief of something more than mockery, if only I could fill my heart with love. And the way that hits, considering like everything that we just experienced, it's just like, just fireworks in my brain go off.
You talk about the difference between Robert Smith and Morrissey.
Yeah.
The difference is that I think sonically, Robert Smith has a bit of a fuller voice in a sense. Like he definitely can be a bit more reaching out, and very, like Morrissey's kind of like a and Robert Smith is like a which for those listening, like, what the hell is he doing? Just go with it. And if Morrissey were to sing these lyrics, he would not sound believable.
Yeah.
Morrissey works best in a very specific sense.
Yeah.
Like, it worked very well in The Queen is Dead because a lot of that was about sort of a ironic sense of, dealing with death in a cheerful way. Or, hey, what about that vicar in a tutu? Or, The Queen is Dead, isn't that great?
Yeah.
So, a very sardonic, twisted type of mindset. And it worked very well there. But if Robert Smith sang the Smith songs off that album, he would sound like a crazy person. If Morrissey sang the songs off Disintegration, he would sound completely like a douche. And Robert Smith, the lyrics are important here because the lyrics are so honest and so open. I mean, granted, they are a little on the platitude side, but who cares?
Yeah.
If you want to sing love songs, go for it. Or if you want to sing songs about losing love, go for it. And the way Robert Smith sings them, matches the earnestness of the lyrics.
You made an excellent point there, man.
Yeah. Thank you.
Excellent job. So, you ready to move on to probably the biggest song off the album that everyone probably knows?
Yes.
So, the song is called Lovesong.
Lovesong.
So, we go from Plainsong, and then now we're at Lovesong.
Yes, Robert Smith did in fact write you a love song, even though you did not ask for it.
So, I mean, what could be said about the song that hasn't already been said? But I mean, I'm just going to say some words anyway, because I mean, this is literally what we do in this show here.
True.
So it's a nice group to start off with. I mean, again, can't really say much about that, and I love how the band again is allowed to jam in between verses, and so the interesting thing, in my opinion, before listening to this whole album, I would consider like Lovesong my favorite song off the album.
Mm-hmm.
And like actually compared to the rest of the album, again, love the album, love the song. This song is kind of like on the weaker side compared to like the heavy hitters that have come in so far, especially with like Pictures of You, Plainsong.
Yeah.
And, like, even the song that's coming up right after this, Last Dance.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many other tracks off of here that just feel a lot more bigger. Again, this is not a bad song, though.
No, it's not a bad song. In fact, see, I know what you're saying about it being... It feels like such an anomaly.
Yeah.
Part of me almost wonders if this was maybe written on the heels of their previous album, which I believe was Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me.
Mm-hmm.
So, because that was a bit more pop-oriented and a bit more, traditional in structure.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of wondering if that was left over from that and it just made its way on here. But I will say wholeheartedly, I'm not just saying this because it was the big... I didn't even know this was a hit until I looked it up.
Yeah.
It's my favorite song on the album.
Wow.
And it's not because... It's not really a hooky song in a sense.
No.
It's not like your typical pop song where, the lyrics sort of, lay underneath and build up to the big chorus, like Baby One More Time, or I Want It That Way, or, Walk by Pantera.
my playlist be like?
Yeah, right. Not even a lie.
Yeah.
But what I really like about this song is I really like the lyrics because you mentioned earlier how, particularly on Pictures of You, how he tends to tweak the verses a little bit to make them sound the same, but they have different words, so they carry different meanings.
Yeah.
He perfects that, I think, on this track.
Yeah.
We'll change one word to keep the ball rolling and keep the conversation going. Adding new avenues to the picture that he's painting without having to wear his arm out brushing on the canvas.
Yeah.
And my favorite part about this track is actually the organ work. The organ work on here is phenomenal, and I love the little differences between the chord that is at the end, because the keyboard line or the organ line is pretty much the same throughout the song, or at least throughout the verses.
Yeah.
But the difference between the ba 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 and the second ba 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 ba, like there's just that little bit of dissonance based on one note, and I love that because they knew exactly what they were doing. Let's make this one sound typical. Let's make this one sound a little darker, but not too much darker. And I love that so much. And again, a great driving beat. In fact, I almost felt about this song similarly that you felt the first time listening to Jesus, etc.
Yeah.
Like you felt, this is just a heartwarming song, and it's probably going to be on my playlist for quite a while.
There you go. Again, love this song as well. I know I said, it just feels like, weak compared to others, but we're talking about, when I'm talking about, weak, I'm talking about, just at least in terms of, being a composition. In terms of, a song, this song slaps pretty hard.
Yeah.
And, again, you basically hit everything, on the head.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that I will add is, I love how the guitar solo is restrained. And there might be some people out there who would be like, well, I want a shredding guitar solo. This is not where you're not going to get that with this band. You're not going to get it with this album here. And that's not the point of this album. It's more just to take you on a journey, string you along, and just suck you in. So,
in a sense, I'm almost feeling like you're sort of reacting to this song on this album the way that I reacted to Swamp off of Speaking in Tongues. Not a bad song, but just so far out of the way compared to everything else that it feels like an anomaly that doesn't fit.
I will concur with you.
Okay.
The only, it's, you had a visceral reaction. I don't know. I wouldn't say a visceral reaction to Swamp. I just acknowledge that, it just seems like...
Yeah, I don't think your reaction to this song was as negative as mine was to Swamp.
Have you listened to the Coldplay album Ghost Stories?
I have not.
So there's a YouTube channel out there called Mike the Snare, and he does do a deep discog dive. And let me see. Let me pull this. I almost swore. It is what it is. But
I have the editing power.
Yeah, you do. And this is me just vamping while I'm pulling up the exact Coldplay song. Okay, so Ghost Stories is essentially it's a heartbreak album, and it's Chris Martin expressing his feelings of going through divorce and all that stuff. I think I could be wrong with that, but out of nowhere, there's this song called "A Sky Full of Stars," and Mike the Snare, whenever he was talking about this song in this album placement, was just like, what are you doing here?
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, that's just essentially what I'm thinking. Again, great song. I would love, this is, if it, I would actively seek this song out. But it just seems like it's a little weird in terms of the placement in the album. Right,
and it's especially weird considering it only takes, I think, 30 seconds for Robert Smith to start singing on this track.
Yeah.
Which, again, is an anomaly compared to the rest of the album.
Yeah. So you ready to move on to Last Dance?
Let's do it.
So Last Dance, So it changes up like the grooves that have like well, again, like with Plainsong, Pictures of You, Close Down, Lovesong, like every song kicks off with in a different manner, but this is almost like an entire different groove to kick everything off. Like that guitar lick is very sick, and like with the synths, it's a very nice way to start off the song.
Yeah, it sounds very 80s.
Yeah,
in a very good way.
Yeah.
The synths do carry it. It almost feels like you're listening to, this intro of like almost a Prince song in a sense.
Yeah.
Sort of this very dramatic opening before it gets into the groove, but it is the groove.
Yeah.
And it's a very dreamy beat that's, again, subtle on the percussion, very top heavy as far as the guitar and synths, like you said. And then it gets into the lyrics, which I think elevate it to one of my favorite songs on this album. I'd say it's definitely in the upper quadrant, I would say, of songs on the album. Because when he's talking about, I'm glad you came, I'm glad you remembered, it invokes this, it does feel like you envision him being at this last dance,
Yeah.
It's the prom scene from 16 Candles. Or it's the what's another movie with a big dance scene at the finale?
Footloose?
Okay, let's go with Footloose.
Yeah. Sorry.
Not quite the same, but let's go with it.
Well, like, if anything, like, not in a movie sense, but, like, the ending of Stranger Things 2, like, there's a...
there you go. That's a good comparison, yeah. They're there, and they're ready to have this, quote-unquote, last dance.
Yeah.
And what I find intriguing about the song is that we only, obviously, because it's The Cure and Robert Smith's the vocalist of the band, we only kind of hear his side of the story in this relationship, or in this, moment of dance, or moment of romance, because I'm not 100% sure that this is a situation where both sides mutually agree that this is what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, it almost feels like he's envisioning it, like, to be this.
Yeah.
But it leaves the ambiguity of, does she feel this way? Does she feel like this is the last dance? Is she even interested in this guy?
Yeah. And it could even be, like, so, like, talk about, like, contextually, like, so the album began with Plainsong, where, like, it just seems like a look over, like, a dream sequence. Mm-hmm. This could be another, like, look into, like, Robert looking into, like, how this relationship basically kind of fell apart, because I kind of, like, looked at the next couple tracks, and the album starts to get a little bit darker after this track here. But it could be Robert looking back and be like, okay, hey, like, this is where things start to change. This is where, like, our last good moment. And, like, there's a lyric set that is repeated at the end of every, like, some of the verses. A woman now stands where once there was only a girl. And you can see, like, the effects of time and age have like taken a hold of this relationship.
Yeah.
And it's just Robert taking a look at, like, hey, the person who was once across from me is not that same person anymore.
Right.
And it kind of harkens back to the feeling that you were talking about. Hey, I'm so glad you came. I'm so glad you remembered. Like, it almost seems like it could be, on another sense, him trying to rekindle some feelings and, like, being like, hey, like, let's try to, like, start the fire back up again. But yeah, again, love this song, man.
It is really a fantastic song. And I would even go as far as saying that, those little talks about him saying, that there is, a woman where a girl once stood. That might be a slight jab at himself in saying, you've grown up, and this may be why this has led to the point where we are no longer as we are.
Yeah.
So, again, great song. And again, in probably the top echelon of this album for me.
One other note about this, and we can go into Lullaby.
Yeah.
I kind of love the talk about Christmas in this song here, because Christmas is often looked back at like it's supposed to be like a very happy time, and it's supposed to be like a very like close time with friends and family. And with that and the idea of this being the last time, last dance, and like growing up and like everything that we like talked about in this song here, it kind of just adds like a nice little like flair to it, if you know what I mean. So
you can even say it's their last Christmas.
I see what you did there, man.
Yeah.
But that being said, ready to move on to Lullaby?
Let's do it.
All right. I'm gonna let you kick this off.
Okay,
there.
so Lullaby, little different song here, and I'm just gonna come out and say it. This is one of my 2 least favorite songs on the album. I don't think it's my least favorite, and I'll explain why later. But because one thing I will say is that the groove on this song is very good.
Yeah.
The rhythm section is fantastic here. And if this were an instrumental, I'd be like, oh, absolutely, get down with this. But for whatever reason, they decide to switch things up and give Robert Smith this very hushed, whispery vocal. And we were talking earlier about how Morrissey is more bent to talk about irony or do things in an ironic sense. I feel like this is The Cure's attempt at that on this album, where, they're singing a lullaby, but it's on top of this really groovy thing that can't be a lullaby.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work for me.
See, this is where my slight obsession with lyrics and listening to albums with really with the lyrics in front of me kind of comes into play, because everything that you just made sense, everything you just said makes sense. Even when I first spun this album, I could not. I was just like, oh, well, this is a track here, but taking a further look into it and considering the context of Last Dance and how this song is. So a little context about this song here, because Genius.com is a wonderful place to look up nerdy crap like this.
Yeah.
So the song was inspired by Smith's uncle, who told him scary stories at bedtime about a Spider-Man who ate children. So
okay, I'm glad you cleared that up, because I keep hearing Spider-Man in this song, and I thought it was Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Which now kind of makes me want to see because you know how they're remaking horror movies as of late, it's it's Lincoln but with zombies.
Yeah.
Or I swear they just did a really stupid one recently.
Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
That's a good example. It's a fantastic example.
Yeah.
So why not make a Spider-Man movie based on this song? I mean, we should do that, but while we're at it, we might as well.
Yeah. The way that I walked away from this song here, again, to harken back to this is more of an effect, and I can get behind this effect. The hushed vocals, again, with this context about, hey, this is Smith experiencing encounters with the Spider-Man at night. So he's sleeping at night, but then he hears the Spider-Man and having a conversation. He's so scared out of his mind that this is the only way he can get out words. And I even took it a step further, considering Last Dance just happened. This is where the poisonous side of love starts to take into effect in terms of Smith's mind. So the lyrics that support this are his arms are all around me and his tongue in my eyes. Be still, be calm, be quiet now, my precious boy. Don't struggle like that, or I will only love you more. So, And, like, whenever I saw that set of lyrics, I'm like, okay, because, like, a lot of this is a back and forth between this Spider-Man does whatever a Spider-Man can. Don't hope that...
Please don't copyright strike, please.
Matt, you might want to edit that part out. But, like... it's a conversation between him and Spider-Man, and this Spider-Man is, like, this love that not Morrissey, crap. Forgive me, Father, for I've sinned. But Smith has, and it adds a different element, and I can get behind it. Is it one of my favorite tracks off the album? No. To be honest with you. Is it a bad track? No.
No, I would agree. It's not a bad track. Again, it's sort of in the same manner as Plainsong, just kind of not really for me.
Yeah.
And that was more about production. This is just more about style.
Yeah.
Again, I think this is the one song on the album where I think if Morrissey had sang it, or you knew that it was the Smiths, it would make a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
Not to discredit Robert Smith and the backbones that create these lyrics, but after this is the sixth song on the album.
Yeah.
After 5 songs of him spilling his guts out, singing so heartfelt with heartfelt words behind them, for the tone of the album to go this way, this might be my swamp on this album, where I'm just like, okay, what are we doing here? Why? This is weird. I'm not sure if I'm okay with this.
Yeah.
But much like Lovesong, my reaction to this is not where visceral, because again, that groove line saves this track from becoming really tedious. I mean, it is a fantastic groove.
So, ready to move on to Fascination Street?
Let's do it.
So, talk about, like, songs that kind of, like, stand out, and, like, we literally just got done talking about Lullaby. We also talked about Lovesong. I feel like with Fascination Street, again, I love the song. Spoiler alert, I love every song off this album.
Yeah.
Matt knows this very well.
Yes, I do.
But, like, in terms of, like, thematical elements, like, there's not really one hint of love here. Like, this song is mainly just about just how nightlife can, like, be, and, like, how violent it can get. Mm. But, like, again, it's very vivid. And, I can dig it, man.
Yeah. Kind of spoiling things a little further down the line for me. A song that this reminded me of, in a sense, was the song Panic Station by Muse.
Yeah.
Because that song was sort of an anomaly on an album that was very heartfelt, too. And more of a groove song than anything else. And again, the groove on Fascination Street's very good. Is it a super standout track? Not really. Yeah. But I like it. I think it's a very good track.
Yeah. And I feel like the biggest draw into Fascination Street, again, is the instrumentation. Mm-hmm. Like, there's not really any choruses here. And, like, the only lyric set that I really got a hold of, and it was just like, oh, all right, get down with your bad self, was, I like you in that, like, I like you to scream, but if you open your mouth, then I can't be responsible. And, like, there was even, like, let me refer to the vinyl sheet here. Yeah, so I like you to scream, but if you open your mouth, I can't be responsible for quite what goes in or to care what comes out. Like, this is almost like that set of violent lyrics kind of reminds me of, like, I think it might be Big Mouth Strikes Again.
Yes.
And that comparison, like, that was the only really set of lyrics that I took away from it. Other than that, like, extended instrumental sections in this song are really good. How the track is layered with guitars and synths is pretty tight. Yeah, not much else to say about it.
Not really. I mean, it's a solid album track. Got a great groove, and that's pretty much all you can say about that. And I can almost say that the similar could be said about the next track on the album, which is Prayers for Rain. It is a track that kind of like knocked me off my feet the first time I heard it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because the last couple of tracks with Lullaby, in fact, really 3 out of the last 4.
Yeah.
Actually, of all the last 4. Lovesong, Last Dance, Lullaby, and am I missing one? I don't think I am.
No, I think you're good.
Yeah. Lovesong, Last Dance, Lullaby, and Fascination Street are all very groove based and very very dancey. Very dancey in an 80s sense.
Yeah.
This track is not that.
One can say, with this track and the rest of the album, this is where we start to disintegrate. I'll be here all week. But no, so Prayers for Rain. The way that it opens up, and you were kind of gonna allude to this, it almost has like a desert-like guitar opening to it, and whenever this concept of rain that Smith is talking about in this track here, it's more about hope, and with how this track here can kind of feel a little bit cold at times, and now how you can literally just picture in your head Smith just walking through the desert, and praying for rain, or hope in a sense.
I agree with you, except my vision's slightly different.
Yeah.
Cause especially considering the first song on this album was Plainsong.
Yeah.
And this orchestral thing of being out on this big plain in nowhere, Kansas.
Yeah.
This is him asking for the crops to be get enough rain so they can raise something new.
Yeah.
That's sort of vision. I didn't really think of like the desert like Phoenix or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it's going back to that groove because I can't get enough of it. It almost sounds like it's so dense, and so it almost sounds like doom metal in a sense.
Yeah,
I'm almost half expecting either Ozzy or Ronnie James Dio to start singing instead of Robert Smith, or maybe James Hetfield.
Yeah. That drone is so thick.
It really is.
I love it, man. And it's interesting. Even going off of that, what this song kind of reminded me of in terms of the thing I'm about to reference.
What's that?
And bear with me when I say this. Let me take you by the hand and guide you through this here.
Okay.
When the Levee Breaks.
Okay, I can get behind that.
Because not that there's any extended instrumental solos or breaks as compared to in that song there, but how that kind of offbeat synth acts as a guide and a grounding point to okay, we just finished this one part of the journey, let's reflect and let's go back to the next part and let's reflect, go back. I it's offbeat, and I can understand how it might drive some people insane, but I like it, man.
Yeah, it almost has a lyrical sense all its own.
Yeah.
Which kind of going to When the Levee Breaks, the harmonica part on that song was very much in the same realm.
Yeah.
Where, it had just that little bit of color to this titanic, thunderous beat that was placed underneath it by the rhythm section.
Yeah.
Which... And lyrically, I know you kind of mentioned on it, I don't really think there's a whole lot to this song, similar to Fascination Street. There might be a little bit more.
Yeah.
If you want to deep dive into them, you can. But to me, this is more of a similar. My thoughts are similar on this as they were to Fascination Street, which is the lyrics are okay, but the groove is just fantastic.
Yeah. Well, the one lyric that I'm going to highlight that really just shows the passion and just drives home the point of this song specifically. It starts with, I suffocate, I breathe in dirt, and nowhere shines, but desolate and drab, the hours all spent on killing time again, all waiting for the rain. And again, this is where you start to hear and feel the pain that Smith is going through, especially with that set of the lyrics, man. Again, such a big track. There's a lot of big tracks off of this album, and that's why...
This is just a big album.
Yeah, it is really. Holy cow, man. And like I even listened to like their next album, Wish, after that. After checking this out, and I love that album, but it's again I might have to revisit it just to like just to get my facts straight here. But like at least if you were to ask me, are there big tracks off of Wish? Not really. It's a really good album, but not compared to this here. But ready to move on to the same deep water as you.
Yes, and you may start this one.
Okay. Oh man, I might need a drink of water here soon.
Oh really?
Yeah. Talk about like prayers for rain and water.
Right.
But I love how this track here, it almost seems like the song begins with the sound effects of rain draping over the band. And this is where we start to find Smith losing hope and like not even praying for rain anymore. And just being like, hey, I'm in the same deep water as you. We're in this together. And like the phrase "kiss me goodbye," and like he keeps talking about like leaving. That kind of just gives the sense that he's given up hope in this track here.
Yeah, and it's fascinating you mentioned that because we were talking earlier, particularly on Last Dance, how it feels like he may not be his opinions about how this relationship is going south.
Yeah.
And how they're still together in the sense of breakup.
Yeah.
Now they have to live with this for the rest of their lives. They have to live with being apart for the rest of their lives if they choose to do so.
Yeah.
Like, he may be the only one thinking this. She may not be.
Yeah.
And that kind of adds to the heartbreak of, there's a part of you thinking, you really think she cares.
Yeah.
Which maybe she does, maybe she doesn't. But the ambiguity is what, is the attractive point from the lyrical standpoint.
Yeah.
That being said, this is my least favorite song on the album.
Really?
Yes. And I'm going to be honest, the first time I listened to this song, it almost ruined the entire album for me.
Wow.
Now, on second listen, I reserved some of those judgments back a little bit. I pushed it back.
Yeah.
Because logistically, this is not a bad song.
Yeah.
It is not.
Yeah.
But my goodness, compared to some of the other groups, particularly the ones on Fascination Street, definitely Prayers for Rain, and even Lullaby and Lovesong,
Yeah.
the groove on this feels not up to that level.
Yeah.
And for it to go on for 9 flipping minutes. See, you were talking about giving the band room to breathe.
Yeah.
This is the one track on here, or at least one of the tracks on here, where I think that the tedium and the vamping goes too far.
Yeah.
There's no reason for this song to be 9 minutes long.
Well, I mean, I respectfully disagree.
I understand that.
Yeah. Like a couple of notes that I'll have here. I love how you're like, there's no reason for this to be 9 flipping
There
minutes
really
long.
isn't. I mean, if the groove was on the level of some of the other tracks, I might be willing to give it a pass.
Yeah.
But at that point, it was, especially because at first I thought Robert Smith started singing or stopped singing a lot sooner.
Yeah.
Like, I thought they would be going for like 3-4 minutes. It's like, okay, guys, you made your point.
Yeah.
We know how this song sounds. You can stop now.
Yeah.
But then I realized, okay, it didn't quite, he sang till about like the 6-7 minute mark, so it's not like they vamped for 5 minutes. They vamped for like 2.
Yeah.
But still, too long.
Well, like, even taking a look at my notes here, like, I don't really have that much in terms of, like, instrumentation notes. Like, I talk about, like, I love how the synth, like, drives the track forward. It might be not that much forward in your brain.
No.
Love you.
Love you too.
And again, the simple guitar licks between verses 1 and 2 is a nice touch. Each verse begins with the phrase "Kiss me goodbye," which I've talked about. And at the end, how there's the solo break happens, and then you can hear thunder in the background. Mm-hmm. It adds a nice little element to it.
Yeah.
And like, eventually, like, you get to the point in the song where all you can hear is thunder and rain, which is very nice. And, like, I feel like this song, it's about, like, you know, just the fact that you know that you're never going to live up to, like, you know, people's expectations of you.
Mm-hmm.
And just coming to terms with that and being like, hey, you know, in this together, all things that I've already said. Yeah, I think I was thrown off by your absolutely hatred of this song.
I don't know. I don't hate this song. I just it's very again. It's not a bad song. It's just easily my least favorite.
Okay.
Because again, it's just a little too tedious for my taste. It's you know because again like Pictures of You. It's 7 minutes long, but I can listen to that song no problem because like yeah the groove is great on here.
Yeah.
The groove on this song is just okay. And it doesn't warrant 9 minutes of. And plus, I think the vocals aren't like Robert Smith has sung his heart out on certain tracks.
Yeah.
Again, Last Dance, particularly, even his vocal performance on Fast 8th Street is fantastic.
Yeah.
This one not so much. I mean, it's more or less an ordinary track to me.
Yeah.
That goes for an extraordinary length that doesn't deserve.
Yeah, I would disagree, but you know.
That's fair.
Apparently, I'm in love with The Cure.
I could. What gave that away?
It's Tuesday and I'm in love.
Right.
But anyways, yeah. I'm sorry, brain was digesting my thoughts there. But you know what this kind of like the comparable that I can make is so in the Smiths episode we talked about the song No One Had No One Ever, and how like some have compared that song to being like the birth of depression, and like it's the most depressing song that they've ever released.
Yeah.
I feel like, you know, the same Deep Water as You is comparable. I want to say it's probably the most depressing song that The Cure has ever released, but in terms of like this album in terms of like context within it,
yeah,
like it's definitely the most depressing song off the album.
Yeah, I can get behind that. It's definitely a downer, and again, I think the other thing too, and I'll end on this, is that because of the sort of almost optimistic nature of the first half of the album, with Lovesong, with Last Dance, even to a sense Pictures of You.
Yeah. That
for it to feel and sound so desolate, again, kind of a little bit of a turn off for me.
Yeah.
Not that he has to sing. I mean, again, it's his art. He could do whatever the hell he wants.
Yeah.
But again, I think between the mixing in the groove and sort of the less optimistic feelings, I just, again, did not care for the track. Plus, again, 9 minutes to maybe.
All right. I think you're ready to move on to Disintegration.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
All right. I'm gonna let you kick this one off.
Okay, so the title track here, much better. And I'd say the groove is a lot tighter on this track. It's a lot deeper. Kind of harkens back to... it's sort of a halfway point between Last Dance and Lullaby groove-wise.
Yeah.
It's not like super funky, but it's just funky enough. But the real standout, I was talking about how the singing on Same Deep Water You didn't like knock me out, and how the singing performances on like Fast 8th Street did. I think this is the best one on the track or album by far.
Yeah. I feel like, so, like, even to continue off the thoughts that you were having there, I feel like this is a climax off the album. Like, this is where, so, if like, you know, the Same Deep Water as You is where Smith in the relationship is, like, utterly depressed. This is him being manic and just freaking the heck out.
Yes.
Lyrics that exemplify that are... But I never said I would stay to the end, so I leave you with babies and hoping for frequency, screaming like this in the hope of the scenery, screaming me over and over. I leave you with photographs, pictures of trickery, and I love, again, this might be me reading a little bit too much into this, And like I'm even gonna mention like me reading a little bit too much into like the lyric set as a whole with the next track. Like he's talking about like pictures, and the second track off the album is Pictures of You.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Like it might be unintentional or not, but I picked it up, man.
Yeah, it sort of does the same thing, and he tends to do this a lot throughout the record too, where he sort of cross references a little bit to other songs that he's talked about. But, he does a lot subtler here than Billie Eilish did in the sense on the closing track of When We All Fall Asleep, etc.
Yeah.
But you talk about the lyrics and him being manic. I got that just from listening to it time and time again because, he's the way he's singing about an incident that must have occurred where he's talking about stains.
Yeah.
Like if the last track was, I don't want to talk about this, let's just forget about it. This track is actually, now that I think about it, let's talk about it. Which, when you're dealing, it almost feels like this whole album is like the artistic, gothic version of the 5 stages of grief.
Yeah.
Just brought out in song.
Like, what could be really, like, this, I mean, in terms of like a composition and like, a song as a whole, Pictures of You might be my favorite song off the album, but this song here has no right to be this good. Like, like the groove, the instrumental, Smith's vocals, lyrics they all work so good. Like, there is a movie called Booksmart that, have you seen it?
I have not.
Okay, one day we'll see it. But it's essentially like the female Superbad. And
okay.
Like one of the opening scenes has like the introduction of like the two girlfriends, and they're both complimenting each other, being like, "Who told you that you could look this beautiful?" That is my reaction to this song here, and maybe The Cure as a whole. Like, even looking over like other sets of lyrics here, and like how like you talk about like it being vivid and so like amazing. So let me see here. Sorry, my brain is recovering here. So, like, even like the lyrics said, now that I know that I'm breaking to pieces, I'll pull out my heart and I'll feed it to anyone. Crying for sympathy, crocodiles cry for the love of the crowd. And 3 cheers from everyone dropping through sky. Like, the line about I'll pull out my heart and I'll feed it to anybody, like, holy cow, dude.
Yeah.
He has no right to be this awesome with, like, just how he's able to, like, pull out such amazing lyrics.
Yeah.
Man. Oh, my brain is hurting.
Well, we only got 2 songs to go, so hopefully we can make it through.
Yeah, we'll be good. You have any other thoughts on this song before?
Not really. I think it's a top tier song on this album.
Yeah.
It's very good.
I'm gonna name. I'll say it's my second favorite song. I'll still crown "Pictures of You" as like the best song.
Okay.
But yeah, like it's a close second. Maybe by like a 0.00001 points. So.
Yeah.
But anyways, going on to Homesick. So Homesick. You want to leave this one off?
Yeah, Homesick is the penultimate track off this album, and granted, the first time I listened to it, I was still recovering from the tediousness of Same Water as You, or Same Deep Water as You.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel quite loose about this, but ultimately I thought this was just the track.
Yeah.
Like, this really did not stand out to me at all. Like, the groove's okay when it's not upper level. And yeah, I just think it's a track.
I feel like at this point we're reaching towards the end of the story here.
Yeah.
Like, if anything, like this might be like the credits are rolling, right?
Yeah.
Oh no, that's what I would say. That's with the next track, but like no, we're getting to the journey back home, right? Mm-hmm. And one thing I did appreciate. I love every track off this album. I know I've said this like countless times. You're probably thinking like, you should just buy a T-shirt, man.
Right.
But like, one clever thing that I noticed is like how the groove does develop and how like it's layered in with like different parts like synth, piano, guitar, bass. It all comes together in like a great fashion, in my opinion. And how like each adds its own independent element, and then around the 3-minute and 30-second mark, Smith just slides in with his vocals. It's not anything pronounced. It's just like, and I'm talking. Like, I kind of love that.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on my thoughts so far?
I mean, I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say again for it being... It's a longer track, and the fact, like you say, he doesn't start singing until after 3:30. It's a bold move, and I respect that.
Yeah.
But for the groove to be as kind of meh as it is, it didn't really like do a whole lot for me.
Yeah.
But I will say, it almost feels like the whole thing with him taking so long to speak or to sing on these tracks is actually rather forward-thinking of him. Because what do we hear about nowadays? You know, all these bands going out and it's like, oh, we're performing this entire album on tour, 30 years after the fact, and we're going to do it just like you remember it. Well, Robert Smith can get away with that because he has allowed himself so much time to breathe in between songs that it's not going to tire him out. So he was very forward-thinking in that regard. But aside from that, yeah, I agree with your feeling like, if you ever watched a movie where you're pretty sure the main part of the story's been told and now you're just wondering how's it going to end?
Yeah.
And there's that little lull period where you're just like, okay, there are things that are happening, but it doesn't feel like anything's important that's happening and we're not like towards the end of the movie.
Yeah.
That's what this song is.
I disagree with that.
Okay?
Yeah. But again, respectfully disagree, because like I feel like I'm much higher on this album than you are.
A little bit.
Yeah. But so two things I'm going to mention about this here, that kind of like really like brought this song up to a new level for me. Lyrics again, amazing. The lyrics are that I'm going to like focus in on, and then there's one set of lyrics that I'm kind of gonna like reference, and it kind of blew my brain a little bit.
Okay.
So the vivid lyrics that I'm going to mention first are, and I forget how to move when my mouth is this dry. So, talking about like, prayers for rain. And my eyes are bursting hearts in a bloodstained sky. Like, holy cow, dude. Like, again, so good, so heartbreaking. But the one thing that I am going to mention, so this track is called Homesick, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's talking about inspire in me the desire in me to never go home. And he keeps saying like never going home. In Lovesong, earlier on in the album, he was talking about when I'm alone with you, you make me feel I'm at home again.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so he's like thinking
okay.
like, I never want to go back here. And this is him just reflecting on the relationship and just really acknowledging the pain that he went through.
Right.
And again, this might be me reading way too far into the lyrics. Maybe not as much as I did with I Am Trying to Break Your Heart by Wilco. But
no, nothing will beat that.
Yeah. But like that's something I picked up, and when I read that, it brought everything into full circle for me. So, you ready to go on to the last track?
Yes.
What's it called?
Untitled.
And I'm gonna let you lead us off for a second.
Okay. I love the way this track begins. I'm not sure what it's being used. I'm not sure if it's a synthesizer or a melodica or an early copy of the Sega Genesis. I don't know what he was using, but whatever sound they make, that almost like accordion-esque sound at the beginning, I love that. And I do love how it transitions into what's actually a really good groove and a really good riff to bring us into the last part of the album. Lyrically, I'll leave that more to you, because again, I think one of the strengths for me on this album was the groove.
Yeah.
So if the music's there, it just kind of puts everything else into place. And if the lyrics excel here, which I think to a certain degree they do, then it just makes for a very good track.
You had everything right on the head, man. Like, I was just like, the song begins with an accordion? What?
Yeah.
But, so this is where the credits, this is the credits rolling. This is just, hey, thanks for coming. This is the end of everything here. But, one lyric that I'm gonna talk about here, it's literally the second verse. Never quite said what I wanted to say to you. Never quite managed the words to explain. Never quite knew how to make them believe. And now the time is gone. Another time undone. Hopelessly fighting the devil futilely. Feeling the monster climb deeper inside of me. Feeling him gnawing my heart away hungrily. I'll never lose this pain. Never dream of you again. Holy crap! What?
Again, how do you have the right to be this beautiful?
Oh my god!
Because I know your exuberance to that lyric. You've made that very clear.
Yeah.
But 2 points to bounce off there. Number one, talks about fighting the devil inside himself.
Yeah.
Yet another callback, sort of very similar to what we was talking about in Lullaby.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, how I was talking before, not too long ago, about how this whole album feels like the 5 stages of grief.
Yeah.
This sounds like the acceptance.
Yeah.
This sounds like him being like, okay, I know I'm going to be fighting this forever. I know this is going to be a battle within me, and I know it's going to be fraught forever. So be it.
Yeah.
And I think that is a great way to end the album thematically and lyrically.
Yeah. And to make one last note about how beautiful this band is and how beautiful this album is, the vocals cut out halfway through. You don't hear Smith from the halfway mark on.
No.
It just ends with the instrumentation. And that's absolutely amazing, dude.
Yeah. And I love how the accordion / synthesizer / Sega Genesis riff at the end of the track just sort of ends, it doesn't fade out. It just picks the one note to end on it. It there's not an amen chord or this grand ta-da. No, it just ends.
Yeah.
Which I think adds a nice touch too.
We did it, man.
We did it.
We disintegrated.
We disintegrated Disintegration.
And holy cow, what a freaking amazing album. So, you want to do some ratings?
Well, I'll do some ratings. I don't think you have to do them, but I'll let you start anyway.
So, for those of you who are listening and are geez, I wonder what Ryan's going to rate this. This is a beefy 10 out of 10.
A beefy 10.
If I can rate this 11 out of 10, I would.
Wow.
But easily, oh my goodness, I can't overstate, I had such a... As weird as it sounds, ever since I got into this album, especially with the 1-2-3 punch of Plainsong, Pictures of You, Close Down, I had such a special feeling inside of me that I'm this band is gonna be something special for me, and I'm starting to explore the band pretty in depthly. I'm gotta be able to go away from Disintegration now that we've done the episode, but again, there's a lot of big songs off the album, and even the smaller songs like Lullaby, Lovesong, Fascination Street, they're still good songs. It can't be big songs all the time,
right?
Because then it's just it can, but everything works so well with each other, and how the band's able to breathe, and how Robert Smith delivers vocals and the lyrics that he delivers, they're utterly heartbreaking, and I'm here for it.
Yeah.
And I can't say enough about it. 10 out of a beefy 10.
Okay. I regret to inform you, I'm giving this a 0.5 shittiest record I've ever heard.
Attention, everyone. We are now looking for another co-host. So if you listen to this, Matthew has been killed.
No. In all seriousness, I'm not as high up on the album as you, but it's still a very good record. The grooves throughout they range from, at the very worst, okay, to just downright amazing.
Yeah.
Again, and even like for whatever little mistakes there are, whether it's the tediousness of Same Deep Water as You Are, the production choices on Lullaby or Plainsong, there's still something good in every track.
Yeah.
And a lot of times what's good in those tracks is great. It sort of offsets the not so good.
Yeah.
And again, I think what sort of bumped this rating up for me is our discussion of the lyrical themes and how it all ties together into this story of a man going through a breakup and going through the emotions of going through a breakup.
Yeah.
I'm going to give this a solid 8. It's a really good album.
Yeah. So, that being said, on average, we rate this a 9 out of 10.
Yes.
Because that's how math works. And as a collective, we are both hot. Like, I think my score... What did you rate The Queen Is Dead, if I can remember?
I think I gave that either a 7 or a 7.5.
So, at the end of the day, as a podcast and as music nerds, we both appreciate The Cure in this context a little bit better than the Smiths.
Come at us.
Yeah. So, that being said,
what album would you recommend based off listening to this album? Aside from every other Cure album.
Well, my album recommendation is going to be a Cure album.
Okay.
It's going to be Wish. It's going to be like their next studio album. It's what I did next because like Wish was going to could have been one of the choices that I selected. Again, not as nearly depressing as the last half of this album was, but the grooves and everything hits really hard in that album too. So, Wish by Cure is my official recommendation. If you like what you heard in this album here and want to explore something else.
Yeah, now for the disclaimer, whenever I select an album, and many of you who've been listening to the podcast probably know this, I only select albums I've listened to because I feel like those are the only proper albums I can recommend.
Yeah.
There is a part of me that, was even considering during the listening of this album for this podcast, going back and listening to some other Cure albums like Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me, or even maybe going back to 16 Seconds again. Yeah. But aside from that, I can't really recommend any Cure albums. The one album I can recommend, I sort of hinted at it earlier, is The Second Law by Muse.
Yeah.
Because I think that album, in a sense, again, carries a theme throughout the entire record, definitely switches between heavy grooves and broad instrumentations, whether it's on the likes of Supremacy or Explorers where they get orchestral, or Panic Station or Madness where they get groovy.
Yeah.
Very much in the similar theme. The only difference is about heartbreak, about a relationship. It's heartbreak about the environment. So, again, that's a very good record. We may visit that down the line several episodes from now.
Yeah.
But that would be my recommendation based off of Disintegration.
Awesome. So, it is your turn to pick.
It is my turn. Well, it's kind of my turn to pick. Because there's 2 albums I'm thinking about right now.
Okay.
And I am going to let you pick between the 2 I'm thinking of.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to go to Seattle or do you want to go to Canada?
I'm going to say Seattle.
Seattle? Okay. Yeah. Then our next album is going to be the 1993 release by Nirvana called In Utero.
Wow. Okay. I am all game for it, man, and that officially breaks off the January challenge, and we did it, man.
Yeah, we did it.
I'm very proud of us. We got into some decent albums.
Yeah, and not only that, but it's fascinating how we got into a theme essentially.
Yeah,
like brought with a challenge, we just sort of went to a certain reservation. Like you selected albums that were very much in the vein of 80s indie or 80s even emo.
Yeah.
Where I decided, you know what? Screw the Grammys. Here's what I think.
All right. you have anything else to add about The Cure before we close it out?
Nothing except I appreciate you introducing me to this album again. There are several songs off here like Prayers for Rain, Pictures of You, and Lovesong particularly that I'll probably be playing my rotation for quite some time.
And like I love how I was able to explore this, and like for all I know, The Cure can end up being my favorite band.
They very well could be. I mean, if this is how it's going to start.
Oh man, it's great. We've created a monster here.
Yes.
All right, so for those of you who have made it this far, one, thank you. Two, if you want to support, if you like what you heard and you want to support us, the best way that you could do that is follow us on your podcasting platform of choice. Rate us, the highest rating that you can give us. Share the episode with a friend. And also by this point, we're going to have announcement of our contest that we're doing to drive engagement up. If you guys want details of that, just follow us on any social media platforms.
Right.
You'll be able to see the post there. But that being said, we are on all social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Threads. We have a YouTube channel. If you want to write to us, we have an email bag at ttalisten@gmail.com. And I think I hit everything on the
I think you did.
Yeah. So
if not, we'll hit it next week too.
yeah. So for the last time in this episode, Matthew and I are in the same deep water as you. And thank you for listening to another episode of Hey, Listen to This.
Cut.